John Alexander, we are here because of Little Satchmo, the documentary, the movie about Louis Armstrong's daughter. When did you first decide that it was a good idea to make a movie about it?
Yes, thanks, Daniela, for having me. Oh, should I hold the microphone?
I can hold.
Yeah, okay, yeah, perfect. I didn't know. Sorry to fight over the microphone right off the bat. When I first read Sharon's memoir, there was no question in my mind that this was a movie that had to be made, and I knew a way to make it. So it was really right away. I read her memoir, in the first sitting. I read it in one sitting, and then I actually read it again, a second sitting, a second reading right in the same sitting, because I was wondering to myself, how is this possible? First of all, is this even true? And second of all, if it is true, how could it be that the most public person, the most public figure in the world has the most private secret you could possibly imagine? Mm-hmm. That sounds like great television to me.
Yes, of course.
So it was really right away, and instantly my reaction was not to overthink the approach, not to overcomplicate things, mm-hmm. but to make a very simple, straightforward adaptation of the memoir, which I found very compelling on its own. I didn't feel it needed a bunch of embellishments or other interviews, but a simple, straightforward approach of just Sharon's voice. Because when I read this, it was like, wow, the voice is so clear and crisp and strong. Mm-hmm. And if I can preserve that experience and duplicate it for audiences, that was the goal. So it hit me right away.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
yeah.
Okay. How long have you been shooting?
We filmed all during the pandemic, by the way. This was a pandemic production. So we were standing far apart, and we had masks on, and
a small team working on it?
A small team, thankfully, because it was a very small movie, aptly named Little Satchmo. It was the little team behind Little Satchmo, and but a strong team. And it was really only 4 days actually filming with Sharon, because most of the material that makes up the film is Sharon's voice, which is voiceover narration that you hear but you don't see. And that was critical in the approach, because it's all a film about what you don't see, what isn't there, the negative space, who you miss, who you're not with, because that's what it's all about. So 4 days filming with Sharon. Yeah, that was the approach. Yeah. That was the point of view. And the voiceover narration took many, many months. I mean, or maybe several months at least. I mean, of going back and forth, of remotely recording. We sent Sharon a microphone to her. This is pandemic production. She recorded it in her home, alone, stay away. And then she sent us
unsupervised.
Right, exactly. Yeah, right. But we would be on FaceTime. I would be on the FaceTime. And then, she would send me the files. We would listen. JC and I would listen, my co-producer, my wife. We would listen, check the files. Then she would go for the next take. And this process went on for at least a month, several months, I think. And that was kind of really the meat of the film, in terms of the content. And then the other shots, the other images that you see were other various units filmed in New Orleans, filmed in New York, like the house that we mentioned. I'll get to that. And those were, again, no actors, and this was no interviews. It was really just me with a camera, essentially, if I were to boil it down. And that's because it was about the loneliness, the isolation. That was a total of maybe 10 to 12 shooting days at the most. Mm-hmm. So for, all in all, 12 plus 4, 16, not bad for a feature, right? I mean, for a feature made for television, it was actually done very, very efficiently. Yeah.
In the house where you...
So, right. I thought you would never
It belongs to you, to your family, isn't it?
Yeah, so the house actually, this is like a dirty secret. I can't believe we're letting this out, but it's good. The house belongs to my grandfather, my mother's father, because my mother is the same generation of Sharon and happens to have grown up in this very close neighborhood to where Sharon actually grew up in Mount Vernon, just purely by coincidence.
Serendipity, isn't
Absolutely.
it?
Serendipity of the universe was in our favor this whole process. And we decided as an experiment, well, what if we do some tests in this house to see if this idea of the empty house that I keep talking about, or the empty spaces, if that even works, because I didn't know if it would. We did a test. That test filmed in my grandfather's house, with me with the camera creeping around the piano and the kitchen and the staircase. That test we cut together with some of Sharon's voiceover recording, and we sent that reel to PBS, to public television in the States. And it was that reel that actually gave PBS the initiative to give us an official letter of support and say, we stand behind this project. So we thought, not only does this test work, but now we're pretty much committed to it because that's what PBS is expecting. So we finished it that way, and we filmed for however many more days after that point. But I was very confident in the idea, even if it was a test. I thought it was a great idea. And it was an opportunity for me to hang out with my grandfather. But the house happened to be of the same, as Sharon mentioned, of the same period, because my grandfather hasn't touched the house. It was basically preserved. So it worked very well, I think. And we showed Sharon these tests, by the way. How does this look? Does it look similar to your house? And she basically gave us the thumbs up. We made changes. It wasn't all ready to go, but we had to source some things and change some of the art, change some of the set dressing and do a little bit of movie magic, move some furniture around. But serendipity is the word, absolutely.
Okay. And what about the music? How did you, or why did you choose those themes instead of another ones?
Eddie Corvin, amazing Eddie Corvin is our composer and my assistant director. He's kind of my right-hand man on a variety of projects, big and small. And I knew he needed to be involved in this from the very beginning. I knew the people that I needed to bring to the table in order to pull this off. And Eddie was the first name that I pulled out of my hat because he's of an older generation than I am. He's very familiar with Sharon's father's work, intimately familiar with it. He is an acclaimed music producer, owned a big studio or a small studio that made a lot of work in New York in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and is recorded with all the biggest names in music. And I sort of charged him with the task of sorting through the multitudes of archives that is Louis Armstrong's music, and to select songs that were relevant both to the time period, but mainly to the content and to the themes that were present in Sharon's story. So Eddie went through, and we had lists, and then we had shorter lists, and then shorter lists, and figured it all out. And then what part of the songs do you use? Oh, we use this part. Oh, we use this part. We use these lyrics. We use this. And it was quite a meticulous task. And then he also created an original song called "Song for Sharon," which we brought in a musician, Wycliffe Gordon, and some other musicians to record this piece, which kind of fills in the void which had never been answered before. All of it's about, of course, you say this is a movie about Louis Armstrong's daughter. Many times what people say is, well, what's the music? What, is it Wonderful World playing throughout the whole movie? You have to see the movie to find out. But this Song for Sharon fills in those gaps of what wasn't spoken before, and it's a song in the style of Louis Armstrong, but trying to sum up the essence of Sharon as a little girl is how I would put it. I'm sure Eddie could put it more eloquently, but that's how I understood it.
That's perfect.
Right,
Have you ever discussed with Sharon her emotions, the way she would feel when the movie came out? It's different from the book, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if I had that specific conversation. I when you started your question, I was going to say yes, absolutely. But her expectation about it coming out, no, we were really, I would say, I wonder what Sharon would say, but I would say our conversations were definitely about her emotions from the bat, because this was the whole point, was to capture her emotional palette and make the audience undergo, to the best of our abilities, that same series of emotions, so that they firsthand experience what she felt, not just understand it, but feel it. The emotions about the movie coming out, I think I was so focused on the emotions of her life, I'd never really stepped back and asked that. But I think we were working so closely and working effectively enough that I think the trust was there. Okay. That we knew we were in rhythm and that it was working, and that I didn't feel I needed to ask. But maybe next time, that is a good question I should ask. Yeah, but it has, I would say, for both of us, it's exceeded our expectations. The reputation, the reception rather, around the world has been beyond what we could have hoped for.
Now that you have worked so next to her, so close to her, do you think that her life could have been different if her relationship with her daddy was different too?
I mean, absolutely. I think if her relationship with her father would have been different, no doubt it would have changed the course of her life, as it would for anyone. This film was very focused on exactly what you just mentioned, the daddy-daughter relationship. It really doesn't get into the daddy that much, and it doesn't actually even really get into the daughter that much. It's about that relationship. And we tried to keep it focused on that because we only had an hour on television, and we could fill the hour with that. We didn't need to get into kind of more distracting material of it that raises more questions than answers it. We didn't feel we needed to get into the background of Lewis's life, or even ultimately the details of Sharon's adult life. This was a child's perspective and a daddy-daughter relationship. And the more focused, as I said initially, the more simple, the better. And that was our guiding principle throughout.
Finally, what can you tell us about your other movie, Rudy Love, isn't it?
It is, yeah, Rudy Love, near and dear to my heart. This is Love, still playing around the world, I'm proud to say, streaming online on the American Legacy Network. And it's broken a lot of records, actually, winning top prizes around Europe, and sells out most of its screenings still to this day, even though it came out in 2018. The demand is there, and Rudy Love is sort of the unsung voice behind American music or world music, and he shows up in places that you would never expect. and you don't know Rudy Love's name, but you have heard his voice, and you've heard his music, whether you know it or not.
Okay.
So check out This Is Love. Yeah.
What's next?
Ooh, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but we have a variety of projects coming up next, both documentary that we're completing some projects, and we have a very tense and eerie and provocative horror feminist revenge film coming out next. So watch out for that, everybody. Be careful. Yeah, I can't tell you anything more, but that's coming up next. Yeah.
Thank you so much. All of good to you. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Daniela. I appreciate it.
Thank you.